Hey, I'm Drotos from keyboardimprov.com, and welcome to our journey through the real book number 195, which is the tune Jordu by Duke Jordan. Great jazz pianist, played with Charlie Parker. And that's kind of in line with what we're trying to do. This whole series of jazz piano lessons is to get us to learn jazz standards from the context in which they were composed, and also how to approach them now with our own individuality, not just sort of notes on the page or by the book, so to speak. So who was Duke Jordan? Duke Jordan's a really great jazz pianist, and he is the pianist who was in the classic Charlie Parker quintet during the early bebop era, the first great Charlie Parker quintet with Miles Davis, Max Roach, Tommy Potter on bass, Charlie Parker on saxophone, and Duke Jordan at the piano. And Duke Jordan's not one of these players that we hear about all the time. People aren't going to say, who's your favorite jazz pianist? Well, let's see, Bud Powell and Duke Jordan, right? But Charlie Parker really loved Duke Jordan's playing. Apparently, Miles Davis didn't love Duke Jordan's playing and was trying to get Parker to get other pianists in the group. And Parker stuck to his principles and said, no, I like this player. I want to play with Duke Jordan. So there could be a couple of reasons for that. One is Duke Jordan, he had that vibe of early bebop playing, which not a lot of players did, right at the beginning. It was new, it was a little different, had a little different rhythm than the swing era, and Duke Jordan had that, and Charlie Parker wanted that in his group. Also, a lot of times band leaders hire pianists to be in their groups because of the way they accompany them. It's not talked about too much, but when Charlie Parker was soloing, he must have liked how Duke Jordan played the chords, just in the right spots, not too much, just to support him in his soloing. And that's a big thing. If you want to get work as a jazz pianist, learn to accompany, particularly singers these days, because singers get a lot of work. So Duke Jordan, wonderful pianist, and when I introduce people to the pianist who played with Charlie Parker, I say, check out so-and-so, Walter Bishop Jr., John Lewis, Duke Jordan, Bud Powell, and Al Haig. And a lot of times they say Duke Jordan was their favorite. There's something about it. It's not flashy, but it's solid, very melodic, very musical, and has a relaxation. Really, really wonderful. Maybe Parker liked that. Maybe he liked the relaxation of his playing. Because he also liked Miles, right? And Miles had that in his playing. So Duke Jordan went on to record on his own. Didn't have one of the most spectacular, famous careers, but really wonderful musician. Check him out. He also would play some stride piano once in a while. If you hear his later recordings, playing some walking tenths. Because think about it, early bebop pianists would have grown up playing stride piano because that was the era when they were young teenagers learning, right? So it makes sense that he knew that stuff and loved it. Jordu was written, it's considered more post-bop. It's right after the bebop era, late 50s. And the famous recording is by the Clifford Brown Max Roach Quintet. The first album, boom, it's the one with Joy Spring on it, classic album if you don't know that yet. And the tune is standard AABA. And one of the things that characterizes it is the use of 2 5-1s, but sometimes he uses all dominant 7th chords, or at least for the 2 and the 5. So D7, we'd expect D minor 7 to G7 to C, right? 2 5-1, even in minor, maybe minor 7 flat 5 as the first chord, the 2 chord. D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 to C minor. And what does Jordan do? He makes it a D dominant 7th. The 2 chords a dominant 7th. Gives it a very classic sound. It's something that Bach might have done, right? Very classical kind of sound. Almost churchy when you play it like that. And then the same thing, 2 5-1 and E flat, but the first 2 chords are both dominant 7ths. So you get to know your 2 5s by playing the head here, right? And then in the bridge, it just goes around the circle of 4ths using dominant 7th chords. And then it starts over on F. goes up to G, which brings us back to the 2-5-1 in C minor. So it's a very classic and classical sounding chord progression. And it works in so many different ways. And listen to this bridge. Very logical. I don't know actually too much about Duke Jordan's early life, but he must have played some Bach or came to the same kind of musical decisions that Bach made on his own. Either one. It's very similar to Bach. And I think that's one of the reasons why it sounds so logical. Bach was a very logical composer too. So there's also an interview with Duke Jordan by Marian McPartland on the Piano Jazz radio show she did for NPR, National Public Radio. You can find that online. It's a very, very good interview. So I'm just going to, I have that Clifford Brown recording in my head where it's not swung overly. It's not like he's going ba-bum, ba-boo, ba-doo, do-doo. It's more like even, cool jazz. So it's sort of in between this swing and straight eighth notes for a lot of this. And then the bridge is just big, like a shout chorus with a big trumpet. I might go into stride at some point because I know Duke Jordan himself liked that, so we'll see. So I'm going to start out with that Clifford Brown way of playing the melody in my mind. Wonderful tune. Wonderful tune. And I did go into that stride. Love that stuff, you know. Reminds me of some of my piano teachers in the 80s who had grown up in the swing era. Billy Taylor, a pianist named Hale Smith. You know, they had that in them, in their organically, in their musical concept, in their bodies, because that's all that existed when they were teenagers. Bebop hadn't been invented yet. They played stride, they played swing. And then they made the transition later. So have some fun. You know, when you're learning these tunes, take time to play the melody by itself a lot, the chords by themselves, and then just solo over it really slowly. Can I make a little melody that just goes through the chords? You know, don't start at tempo all the time. It needs to sort of settle in us as we're learning a tune. So have fun. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. Next time, great bossa, Journey to Recife. I'll see you then. Good luck with your playing.